Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. I'm Alan Alford, and today we're going to have a fantastic show for you. But before we get started, we thank Chef G's Florida barbecue sauce. So delicious and addicting, you may need a support group. So I want to thank our great sponsor, Chef G's Florida barbecue sauce. Please feel free to pick up a 4-pack at flbbqsauce.com. Again, that's flbbqsauce.com. We're in for a great time and a great show. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started.
All right, so we're excited here at the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. We're joined by Brooke Morrisseau. So she's the physique scientist, and we're going to go ahead and learn a lot about her. So let me get from that first. How did you get started in this type of work?
Yeah, thanks, Alan, number one, for having me on. And to be honest, really grateful, for the opportunity of getting started in this work. Before all this, I was mostly into genetics and molecular biology, living primarily in upstate New York. COVID hit, and then I applied for a master's degree in exercise science. I earned a graduate teaching assistantship, which basically allowed me to come to Florida by myself. Nobody else. It was just me. And I'd always liked working out and fitness. And then I really didn't know what the next steps for me, like career-wise. So I applied for the program like a year in advance. My parents had already affirmed to me, we can't afford for you to go. So the only way I was able to go was if I earned the assistantship. And we had gotten it, and that summer I turned 21, and then 3 days later I packed up my car and drove to Florida with my mom. So it was interesting how I ended up in Florida, but basically got in the field just because I used fitness to cope with stress and deal with life through a healthy behaviors, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really inspiring and interesting. So fitness to you is more than just working out. It's a way of lifestyle, and it sounds like to relieve some stress for you.
Correct. Yeah. I guess starting out like with athletics, I swam for 11 years prior to taking time in the gym. So I'd always been pretty, familiar with weights and things like that through sport. But my goal for the longest time was to qualify for Olympic trials in, swimming. And I had went to my undergraduate at Keuka College after I stopped swimming at St. Bonaventure University. So I ended up swimming a year and then completely stopping and, going all in on science. But for most of my life, it was wake up, train, go to school, train for 4 hours, and then go to bed and repeat. It's always been a part of my life.
Wow. So you do a lot more than just working out. You're an avid swimmer too. So talk about that a little bit. Like, what was your passion in swimming?
So I guess that started when I was 9.
Okay.
And I tried gymnastics before that. And then my parents put me in a sport because I had extreme high energy. I asked my mom now, I was like, why was I so good at swimming? And she just said, you could just swim, forever, and you just would never really stop because you just naturally had a lot of energy and nothing else would really, make you normal. And we didn't want, to take you to the doctor or anything. So we just put you in the pool, and then that's what you were good at. And I said, well, thanks, number one. But number two, I still think that's true now. Like I am very high energy, high strung, and yeah, I need to do some exercise, to be normal.
So you spend a lot of time obviously in the gym. For you personally, how much time do you spend, let's say, in a week at the gym?
Right now, it's so strange, the season of life I'm in, because finishing my master's degree last year, really taking 6 months to think about, well, what trajectory could I go? And at first it was pretty challenging, to think outside of a university setting and try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I've always been the person to like do it myself or figure it out. So I went all in on being a full-blown entrepreneur, and it was quite challenging. So a lot of the time that I used to spend in training had to be, cut down to spend on building a business, because now that was my life. So I think that was something hard to grasp, was doing something that I used to love for fun is now something that I can use to help other people, but also it's not just about training. And I think that's where a lot of people who go to college for exercise science or sport, they do it because they personally like sport. And then at the end, you're like, oh, well, I don't really get to practice sport that much until I have all this other stuff figured out. So currently now I usually train in the morning, like 5 to 7:30 a.m. is like my time. So I wake up early and then I go to the gym for 2 hours and then get ready for the day and do business the rest of the day. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely motivating. So by the time most people wake up, you already got your workout in.
I really think that's the only way possible to get it done. And I know for a lot of, high level entrepreneurs or CEOs, executives, if you're not doing it first thing in the morning, like 4 or 5 p.m. comes around, you're still in the office, like people want things and you're going to put yourself last. And I found that to be the case with me in graduate school. It's so interesting because I went to graduate school for exercise science, but the tables turned and I was teaching, I was running multiple labs and helping a lot of people. And it was really challenging to balance all that. And I think, looking at the business that I do now with the coaching side of things, but also acquiring businesses as well, that's usually the biggest problem for a lot of successful, seemingly to be happy individuals is they're lacking being healthy themselves, even though their career and their life looks so shiny and gold.
Yeah, so you got a great point there. A lot of times people are successful in business, but they're not as successful as taking care of their own health and mental health. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this ties back to a conversation that I actually had with a very high level individual yesterday. And he's in the position of total financial freedom, seemingly has everything he could ever want. And unfortunately, he went to the doctor and he's pre-diabetic and he's unhealthy. And I asked him, being in your position now where you're basically financially free, you can do whatever you want. What else could you possibly want? And he says, in the next 3 to 4 years, I don't want to do business anymore. And I just want to be healthy and have some peace. And I, being a business owner now myself, I see this a lot. People in careers that are actually really unhappy. And I never wanted to be that way. Waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning is a priority.
No, you're absolutely right. A lot of people can be very successful at something, but not really love it. And it could also be very unhealthy for them. One of the great things that you do now is you actually help a lot of people. Talk about your passion and helping people get fit and get right.
Truthfully, it all stems back to the reason why I started doing all this. And I thought about that a lot, especially after graduate school, because I had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. And it was exciting and picking whatever I wanted, but it was also really scary. But the passion for me, it always came back to getting super excited about weight loss, science, metabolic health, because I truthfully grew up giving my dad insulin shots for type 2 diabetes. And when I turned 20, I actually learned most of the time that I spent, trying to pursue Olympic swimming and be the best and pretty much being in my own lane. My parents did a really good job at covering things up of what was really going on with my dad. And he had pretty much sacrificed everything to make sure we were happy, including my mom. So he had type 2 diabetes and I gave him insulin shots a lot and he was very unhealthy. And I learned when I was 20 that he actually was having, 3 to 4 heart attacks when I was between the ages of 12 and 15. And he had pushed himself so hard to make sure, his family had a good life and we were fine, that it came at the sacrifice of himself. And it didn't really matter to him. But truthfully, I think he depended on the modern day healthcare system, which prescribed him a bunch of pills, caused him a lot of dysfunction. didn't really get to the root cause of his problem. And the last few years for me, as I gained more skills, I began to speak with my dad of like, hey, like we don't have to, do it this way. And he's super stubborn. And he finally, gave it a shot. And when he was in the position of like losing his legs and having such bad like inflammation in his body, he really was like, I'll do whatever. So we ended up doing a fitness protocol together. He didn't even train or anything. He just changed the way he ate, and he ended up like losing 50 pounds over the course of 3 to 4 months. He was able to keep his legs. He was healthy, and that trickled over to my mom, helping her lose 50 pounds too. So currently now I find my, clientele to be people that mirror those two, whether they're pre-diabetes or pre or post-menopausal weight gain, and a lot of people just wanting to live a healthy lifestyle. The way I'm able to be so successful in getting people results is actually getting to know the person for more than just their symptoms or problems. Because truthfully, you can Google like what's the best diet, what's training, all of this stuff is so readily available to us. But having someone there to hold you accountable on a weekly basis and almost be your friend through the process is really what takes people to the next level.
Yeah, that's definitely astonishing that, people take that for granted, that their health, what are some things that common mistakes that people make diet wise that lead to some serious trouble?
I would say the biggest mistake people make is not preparing in advance, because regardless of, the program you're on, and if it's the perfect plan, if you don't have the food readily available to you in advance to then, go throughout your day, you're just going to be thinking about, food throughout the day, and you're going to grab what's most readily available, which isn't always the most, nutrient dense or healthy thing. And that's where people fall into this trend of not really thinking about those things and then just grabbing what's most convenient. And they end up in a place of being overweight, sitting all day, eating processed food, and, not feeling super good, and they finally realize that they need to make a change when things are already too late. Preparing in advance, whether that's like a Whole Foods meal or, ordering through a meal prep service, like those are the things that take people from like where they are to like the next level. And it could just be as simple as like meal prepping once a week, or honestly ordering meal prep for a lot of people who can afford it.
Yeah, so definitely having your meals ready is a big thing. Do you also help people out with their workout regimen too, aside from nutrition?
I do that as well. And I've done that now for 5 or 6 years, but I tend to specialize in, the nutrition side of things because that's what I really enjoy the most. But I've been doing, training programs for 5 to 6 years. So yes.
So that's the biggest thing now, is making sure that people eat right is what you specialize in. Anything
Correct.
else in your business that you find on a normal basis with people that you hope that they would change outside of like letting it get too bad? Is there something that they should prep themselves for? Like, hey, maybe you should start working out before meeting you?
I would say the number one thing that people can do is just gain awareness about what they're currently doing, especially before a coach comes in and, tries to work in this new lifestyle to the lifestyle you're already living. Because you go to the doctor and they say, you're overweight and you need to work out. And you're like, well, I know. Right. So it's being aware of how much you're eating is probably step number one. And you can just download an app like MyFitnessPal and just start tracking your food, because that's the first step of, a long-term transformation process, is just gaining awareness on what you're doing and then also adopting the mindset that this is a long-term gain. And that's really one thing I do as well, is just map out your transformation process of, if it's weight loss or if it's muscle gain, what does that look like? And what's the process look like after that's over as well?
Yeah, so definitely that sounds really, really interesting. And with
Mhm.
yourself too, what do you do for fun?
Truthfully, I really enjoy, in my free time, I do spend a lot of time training. Other things I like to do is just talking to individuals about their personal stories. I really like learning from other people and just conversating typically with older people. That's one thing I really enjoy. Outside of the fitness stuff, I do tend to speak with older individuals often just because of the investment side of, business that I do with acquiring like health and nutrition businesses as well. That's been an amazing eye-opening experience, so to say, and that requires a lot of time and attention of speaking with people consistently. But I guess to answer your question, it would really be if I choose to do some things for fun. I really enjoy spending time with my mom. That's a lot of fun. I would say I'm really weird because I don't find a lot of fun in the traditional things that people my age would find fun, like the partying, the drinking, that side of things. I've always just been super focused on like what I wanted, and like process of like pursuing something is feels so much better than just like hanging out, you know?
No, I didn't see what you're saying. And speaking of that, you're a well-driven person. What are your long-term goals or longer-term goals from this point forward?
So I would say personally, since graduate school and everything, I spent a lot of time developing the foundational education for like what I want to do now. So personally, it's getting back on a bodybuilding stage and setting myself up in a position of financial freedom and like generational wealth building for myself. That's like more on the personal side, but business wise is, to scale this to the point where, I have multiple coaches on the team and, we're able to help people on a larger level. But business wise as well, I didn't mention this earlier, but I developed a education platform for people who want to become educated on processes to become a coach for body transformation. So I also did that as well. I guess that would be another goal, is to scale that out and get a lot of different people educated and certified to then help other people like what I do now. The other business goal would be to acquire multiple businesses in the health and nutrition business, scale them out, and yeah, that's pretty much those goals right there.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding you right, you want to be a fitness bodybuild model.
I feel like there's a woman out there named Hattie Boydell who developed something called the Sports Model Project. And I had, my first bodybuilding coach when I was 18. And the idea of, becoming a sports model and all of that stuff is still something I want to do. But I think getting, the job stuff and the business side of things and the finance, like that's probably the top priority. Because another thing I find too, within the health and fitness like realm, if you're not in a financial position to consistently pay for your fitness, that's going to be the missing link for you just being able to afford being healthy.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's expensive to consistently do the right thing.
That's a great point. A lot of time when you want to eat healthy, it's not as convenient as you mentioned. It's pretty pricey. Actually, I find it. What can people do to kind of get around that, to kind of curtail their budget to eat right, but still eat healthy?
I would say shopping at stores like Aldi's has been game changer. I remember in college doing bodybuilding preps on like $56 a week at Aldi's. If you're literally just feeding yourself, it's fine. But the problem I find is a lot of people are not just feeding themselves, and their significant others, their kids, their circle tend to have a huge influence on what they do. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to put their family before themselves usually.
Yeah, you got a great point there. And one thing that we do have in common is that we both graduated from USF. Go Bulls!
Right? Yes, we did. Tell
So
me a little bit about that for you.
it's been a great experience. The Bulls and Tampa. Tampa was my location. I also took some class in the Lakeland.
Mhm.
It's been a game changer as far as being connected with the university, meeting people, networking, a lot of life lessons that I've learned. I still, now to help out the university, I still show up to some events. I
Yeah.
also interview some of the coaches there too, and still
Mhm.
stay connected to the university. So when I saw a photo of you, I was like, hey, I I recognized it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that was by the photo was from the near the education building. I
Yeah.
always had nice photos right outside my little office building there.
So for yourself, do you still go by the university and still stay connected?
This past let's see, the May to December, I was going there to stay connected with the physique and body composition lab there for well, for people listening, if you're somebody that's looking to get their body composition, that basically means what you're made up of. How much muscle to fat ratio are you on an individual level? They actually offer those services right out of the university. And for people into running, they do VO2 max testing there. They do metabolic rate testing there. I had the pleasure of just like running that for the last 2 years that I was there. So I was going back for a little bit, to make sure everybody was doing things well and, making sure things were good. But other than that, it's been about 4 months now. I haven't really been back there in a while. So I think I've just been really focused on like setting up the foundations for like myself, and then going back will feel better. Like, yeah, I got it figured out, guys.
And for people who don't know, the USF has one of the best research facilities in the nation, actually.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
In the exercise science department, they have the physique and performance enhancement lab, which is the only bodybuilding research lab in the US. That was awesome to be a part of. They have the muscle laboratory with Dr. Samuel Buckner, easily one of the most eye-opening and perspective-giving individuals I've ever met in my life. Definitely thinking outside of the box. He was an amazing person, as well as a teacher as well. They have a lot of amazing neuroscience labs there. That's something I'm also interested to, is how nutrition affects the way we think and perform in life as well as sport. But yeah, easily one of the biggest campuses I've ever been on. Again, I'm originally from upstate New York, like the middle of nowhere, not the city. So when I first came here, it was completely different. So it's amazing.
That's great. And just a couple things for people who like yourself who love to work out and stay
Mhm.
fit. One of the things that I hear from a lot of females,
Mhm.
is that they have trouble dealing with guys that are always hitting on them at the gym. What do you say to them to not let them be intimidated, but continue to
Mhm.
work out at the gym?
I honestly agree with you here. And that was a huge thing during college, was a lot of people were scared to go and train. And, teaching a weight training course too, a lot of the girls I found were extremely intimidated of the guys. But I find like going there and actually giving it a shot with like learning the movements and consistently showing up and actually seeing some results for yourself in the gym just from being consistent will give you the confidence to like not really care what other people think.
Okay,
And that's
that's
what
great.
I found. That's what I found too. At the beginning when I started fitness, I didn't really know what was going on, but I wasn't ever really scared. Maybe it was just because of my personality, but a lot of people are. And I find the more self-confident you get, the less people scare you, especially in the gym, especially for a lot of girls. So
Yeah, so that's great advice. And you have a lot of skills and a lot to offer for a lot of people. How can people connect with you and follow you and stay in touch?
well, I just launched the new website. So it's pbsnutritioncoaching.com will be our primary website. And there you'll find meal prep service, the education platform I was talking about. And I am on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, just Brooke Morrisseau. I am also on Instagram at the Physique Scientist. And the education platform is also on Instagram as well at Body Transformation Blueprint. And Physique by Science Coaching is also on Instagram as well. So I tend to post consistently and frequently on there and just to try to provide people like value. So yeah,
That's
just
awesome.
try to be helpful.
There you go. Try to be helpful, and you were definitely helpful here, Brooke Morrisseau. And it's been a real pleasure having you on the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. We look to keep following you and keeping in touch with you and have you down the road in the future to update us on you.
Heck yeah, I would love to be back on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You have a blessed day and a great weekend.
Hey, you too, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.